present like have you guys present a chapter or part of a chapter? It's part of, again, learning more efficiently or more effectively what this is all about. Okay. All right. So, okay. So I'm going to turn off my video and my audio and let you guys go for it. Okay. So how do I turn this off? Okay, go ahead. You guys can start it. It's your night tonight.
Okay, so I'll start presenting. So we're going to go through chapters 2 to 3. So chapter 2 is about how to take lecture notes. It gives like a brief list of things that you want to think about. So resist distraction and pay attention, listen and understand, evaluate content for importance so you can write down what is the most important information, decide how to paraphrase, physically write or type your notes, and shift your gaze back and forth between note-taking and the instructor. So tip number 6 in the book talks about how to be ready for a lecture. It says to save time and prepare, so make sure you bring extra writing supplies, organize your materials, and have everything out in your desk before the lecture starts so that you're ready to start writing immediately. It says that color coding causes too much time loss, so like switching between a pen and a highlighter over and over again might cause you to be behind. So you might not want to do that, but you should still keep your notes neat and organized. Tip number 7 talks about determining in advance if you want to understand more or write more. So understanding requires more focus and attention, so you'll be writing less. Most of the time, understanding is better than writing as you can reference textbooks or lecture slides for exact information later. Never write anything you do not understand and ask the speaker for clarification immediately or make note to check in later. The best strategy for note-taking is to first understand what the speaker is saying and then write down your interpretation of that information. If a lecture is detail-heavy but easy to understand, focus on recording as much as you can. If the important content is more abstract, focus on understanding and write notes sparingly using your own words. Tip number 8 is talking about how electronic notes, like typing on a Chromebook, are a lot faster and more accurate. However, they can cause distractions, like having multiple tabs open and looking at your email and other things. So they consider putting devices on airplane mode or taking notes just on paper. Electronics may also distract the students around you as they see like you having a Chromebook out or something. If the lecture is not a fact-heavy one where speed is essential, it's your best to take notes longhand on paper. If speed is essential, then use the laptop but disable your Wi-Fi or go in airplane mode before the lecture starts. Tip number 9 is talking about evaluating your notes on the spot to make sure that they're good for future you. You have to strike a balance between briefness and clarity. So you have to evaluate your notes to make sure that they will make sense in the future. Like if you write short forms for words, do you know what they mean? And make sure that you won't forget what you were trying to hint towards later on. If the instructor asks if anyone has any questions, look at your notes to see if there's anything that you missed, and then you can ask them for the misinformation to add into your notes.
Okay, so tip 10, don't use note-taking techniques that you don't understand. So a lot of teachers will ask you to do Cornell notes or mind mapping, but if you think those techniques are not helpful to you as a note taker, then don't use them. They're not very worth it to pay attention to. Write notes the way that you think you will understand when you come back to it for a test. All right, tip 11. So you can always use shorthand, so you don't have to write everything when you handwrite your notes. We now like type everything, but still I think it's very useful to know these shorthands. You can make up your own abbreviations if you want, and you don't have to memorize purposely memorize them. That actually takes away from the point of having an abbreviation. So if you don't want to abbreviate anything, you don't have to. And also for graphs, I think it's most important to write down the point of the graph. Don't actually draw the whole thing. It's not really worth your time. All right, tip 12. This is, I think this is the most important one. Don't actually depend on video lectures. Now, the reason why I say this is because when people do depend on video lectures, they will procrastinate a lot because videos don't go away, and they think that they can always go back to it, but it actually takes away from the learning experience. Most people who do watch or listen to lectures in class, they have a higher chance of remembering it. When it's a video, you have a higher likelihood of being distracted. All right, so this is chapter 3, and chapter 3 talks mainly about activities. So a big problem that students have when they do in-class activities or labs is that they don't know why they're doing it, and they don't know what they're supposed to learn from it. Activities are meant to teach you something, and you should do an activity for the experience, but also know why you're doing it and the main takeaway. Okay, tip 13, be there and be engaged. For an activity, you want to participate in it, especially for high school labs. You have to do the labs and actually understand them for you to do well on the test. And most of the time, you will be deriving like equations or using equations. So that helps you understand the material more. For other types of activities, you can take notes, but please do not take other people's notes, like copy other people's notes when you're doing those activities, unless you're absent. So if you just copy other people's notes, you won't understand it as well. And sometimes you can't even read other people's handwriting.
So tip number 14 is if the activity is brief and offers a surprising, interesting experience, is probably an analogy. So what is an analogy? An analogy for something you already understand with something you are trying to understand, which helps you understand the thing that you're not familiar with. A key part to this is paying attention to the right features because some parts of an analogy are not important to understanding a topic. You also have to focus on the mapping, which pairs something you already understand with the features of something that you're trying to understand. Obviously, if you're unsure about the mapping, you should ask. Lastly, don't get distracted by irrelevant details or humorous parts of the analogy because it will interfere with your motivation and ability to understand the true meaning of what you're trying to understand. Tip number 15 is if the activity comes with a script, you're supposed to learn either skills or concepts. So what is the purpose of this? One purpose is to make the learning more memorable. You can read about something, but you will learn faster if you do it. Other times a scripted activity has a different purpose, which is to teach you higher level thinking techniques. The main point of an activity is either to learn a technique that requires physical practice or to engage high-level thinking strategies. It is important to know what you're supposed to get out of it. Tip number 16 is, for projects, pick the problem with care, seek feedback along the way, and reflect at the end. First, select your project based on what you want to learn, not what you want to accomplish. So you want to think about the process as you choose a project and think about this question. Will the process emphasize the elements you're hoping to learn about? Second, when you're in the middle of your project, be sure to get feedback. It's sometimes hard to create your own feedback. You may be able to tell that something is going wrong, but not know why. So you ask other people. Third, when you finish the project, pull your thoughts together and reflect. The best case scenario is to use experience to make your next project a better learning experience. Reflecting on it right afterward and recording your reflections may make the difference. Tip number 17 is when the purpose is the activity itself, know the difference between experience and practice. Experience is not the same thing as practice. To maximize your improvement, you must focus on one aspect of the skill at a time. Complex skills have a lot of components, and you can't think about all of them at once. For skills where there is not an accepted sequence, start with what seems elementary to you, but you're inept at. Feedback is also vital, not just on the outcome, but on what you're doing that makes the outcome unsatisfactory. To respond to feedback, you need to generate and try out new ways to do it. You also have to concentrate on what you're doing and plan for the long haul.
I think those are all our slides for chapter 2 to 3.
Sorry about that. I was okay. So let's kind of just discuss what kinds of things did you people think that something that will help you. So let's just kind of go through quickly on it. And next week, maybe we can do 3 chapters and get through this quicker. So Shreya, out of the 2 chapters, what are some things that you learned that will help you be a more independent learner?
I think the activities was really relatable. Like I'm in AP chemistry and a lot of the labs, I find it hard to understand what I'm doing. So I think paying attention and like preparing more before the lab will be helpful.
Okay. Isabella, what about you?
I think something like I found really important was like fully understanding the activities and labs and that type of stuff because usually I don't really get like the full meaning behind it.
Mhm. Okay, Lena.
So the part where um where they said abbreviate taking notes, I found that actually extremely helpful because I don't know how I didn't realize that I could abbreviate taking notes because I always take so long to catch up with my teacher every time she was like saying stuff and trying to take notes. So that actually makes a lot of sense now.
Okay, Mila.
I like the point about how you should choose like the note-taking method that works best for you. Because I remember last year in English, my teacher made us take notes on every single chapter of Catcher in the Rye, and she gave us 3 different like note-taking options, and I ended up choosing mind mapping because Cornell notes suck. But with the mind mapping notes, I ended up basically summarizing the entire chapter on an entire page, and it looks crazy, but it also helped me remember all the information that I needed to remember, and I ended up getting like a decent score on the in-class essay and a good score on the test.
And there are chapters down the road that actually show you, how to take notes different ways, like writing on one side of the paper only during class and then leaving the other side for going back and looking at the notes and adding additional information. Okay, Anika, what about you from doing these chapters? What did you learn?
I liked the tip about um color coding because I used to try to make my notes look really pretty and be organized, but I realized that it does waste a lot of time.
Mhm.
And also, I do take notes on electronics a lot and do get distracted by other websites. So I didn't think of airplane mode before, but I might use that.
Okay, Siran, what about you?
I absolutely love the point where they talked about how you don't have to force yourself to write a certain type of notes, because I realize a lot of teachers, they do want you to take notes and they give you all of these options to help you, but they end up sort of backfiring for me because I spent too long trying to organize them and not actually going into my brain. So I think that was very reassuring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because one of the things, again, I don't know if anybody else has read as far in the book as I have, but Okay, you take your notes in class, you go away from it, then you can reorganize them outside. You might do some reading where you can supplement those notes, okay? Or if you have a study group where other people have caught different things, you supplement those notes. And again, there are chapters ahead that do that. Okay, Selena, what about you?
I think it's important to get feedback because um, I used to like when I finish a project or an assignment, like some parts may seem wrong, but then I just don't know like which parts are wrong. And then maybe if I ask someone else for their feedback, they can like find out like what's not wrong with the assignment because they're looking at it from a different perspective.
Correct. And, I just did the 7 habits with the group again just a little bit ago. And of course, we discussed paradigm. Okay. And paradigm is your perception, right? So your perception in the class, and again, your mind might be 27 other places at once. And so it will go through about how to ask the instructor for clarification. It will go through how to write down the notes and how to get that info, how to make your notes more effective, how to study for tests. It's really got a lot of good stuff. So since we are so short, how about if next week we do 4, 5, and 6? Okay. So no, excuse me. If we do 4, 5, and 6. So do we have anybody that would like to put together chapters 4 and 5? Because you're all going to get stuck doing it sooner or later. Come on, you guys. Volunteers? Who can I bribe? Because chapter 3 is done, and chapter 4 is already assigned to. No, excuse me. I'm thinking 2, 3. So we're going to do 4, 5, and 6 next week. Um, let's see. Lena, you want to take chapter 4?
Okay, I'll try.
Okay,
I mean, I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it.
okay. And Mila, you want to take chapter 5? Okay, and just Anika, if you can send the slide format out to these guys, and let's see. Uh, Isabella, how about if you take chapter 6?
Yep, sounds good.
And to get up at Shreya, how about if you take chapter 7?
Yeah, I can
Okay.
do it.
And just again, that'll be coming up, and don't, this will reinforce this stuff in your minds, okay? It'll reinforce it as you're doing it, because if you have to present, that helps too, and that'll reinforce it. So, Anika or Siran or Selena, did you get who we got? Lena for 4. Let me write that down. Find some paper. Okay. Lena 4, Mila 5, right? Isabella 6, and Shreya 7. Okay, anybody else have something? We'll try and do 3 chapters next week so we can fit all this stuff in. Anybody have anything else they want to add? Because that's about it for today. We're ending 10 minutes early.
I'm going to make a Google Doc with a shareable link where I'll put the links to all the slides and the recordings so
Okay,
that I'll send that out in the Discord and Miss V can send it in email for
okay. However, you guys, if you guys can go through Discord, again, the more you guys can do amongst yourselves. If I have to go in and make a presentation, you'll have to walk me through all this stuff, Anika, because you know how how old school I am. But one thing with going through these, because as an instructor, I would have and encourage students to color code their notes when they took them, or when they were reading, to color code their reading. And that's a little bit different than taking your notes, okay? But while you're taking notes, you just write them down. Then you can go back and organize them later. But quickly later. I mean, after class or that evening, that afternoon. And this really becomes important when you get into college, because again, what they say is for every hour you have in class, got 3 hours of study time per credit. Okay, so if you're taking 18 credits, let's make it easy. If you're taking 15 credits, which is a full-time student, and then you've got 45 hours of that week to study just to keep up, and that's really a minimum. So the better you are at taking notes, the better you are at listening to the lectures, the better off you'll be. Okay, guys. Hey, you guys all have a great week off. Selena, Anika, and Siren, let's meet up this week to talk about the STEM project so we can have something when everybody gets back in school. So I will email you guys out about just sitting down and going through it. And we really need to probably sit down in person to discuss, okay?
Sounds good.
Okay, so yeah, one day this week. Okay. All right. Well, you guys go have a good evening and we'll be in touch next week.
Thank you.
Okay, bye everybody.